There are 33 questions, 33 set of questions, and they are not related to law. That's very interesting. That's what I said in the beginning. It's going beyond the law.
Welcome to the Corner Office, your go-to podcast where we learn about the world of business, leadership, and success strategies. I'm Sanchit Vijay from Corporate Professionals, and today we'll talk about the business that sustains and the evolution of ESG practices in India. So in each episode, we bring to you insightful discussions and intriguing topics from the corporate world. Whether you are a seasoned executive, an aspiring entrepreneur, or even a person looking for valuable insights into business landscape, we have something in store with you. Today we have with us Sukriti. Sukriti is a senior associate and manages ESG reporting and advisory practices in India. Hi Sukriti, how are you? Welcome back to Corner Office by
I'm very
Corporate
well,
Professionals.
Sanchit. Thank you so much.
So I think today's topic is very clear. So evolution of ESG practices in India. And before we start anything, I have a very direct question. What exactly is ESG? And how did this term even come up?
Yes, so I think a lot of people are talking about it. And ESG, to be put simply, is just a mirror probably for the companies to see and reflect on their value chain proposition.
Okay.
It is going beyond statutory compliances. It is doing the right thing, even if nobody is watching.
Okay.
This is how I'd like to convince myself, being an ESG consultant. And whenever there is a company that is out there doing a business, there is always a impact that it's creating, more than the financial impact. So the ancillary impacts are on the environment, on the social factors, and on its own internal governance. So ESG, inside ESG, there are various frameworks that India has started to adopt eventually. However, if you ask me how did it evolve, it definitely evolved, I would say, from the 2004 report that was published by United Nations, saying that whoever cares wins. That's the name of the report. That spoke about engagement of stakeholders from various communities, brokers, consultants, people who thought that they don't have any carbon footprint but ended up having a lot of carbon footprint throughout their daily chores. So that was a very comprehensive report that gave that was quite a good food for thought for the world to think. And in India specifically, we did have ESG framework, not particularly ESG, but we had the most evolved environmental laws. We had Supreme Court telling us do this, do that on internal governance. We had, in 2013, we formalized CSR activities and made it a proper mandatory compliance. So we did have the stick, just that it has started to collaborate at one place.
So today, who is releasing these ESG guidelines? Who is telling us to follow ESG in India? What is the regulation that is proclaiming that you have to follow ESG and you have to do this? What is this and who is saying that?
Yeah. So, okay, in 2011, we had the first formal national voluntary guidelines, disclosure guidelines for the top 10,000 listed companies. Okay. So I'm sure you're aware that listed companies are always governed by SEBI.
Right.
So SEBI was the initial governing body for any kind of disclosures that are there with respect to voluntary disclosure with respect to even non-financial assets.
Okay.
So SEBI had been taking care of that. And in 2018, we had BRSR guidelines, we had NGBRC. They came nearly and on the same time. NGBRC is National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct. So now you see the word social, governance, environment has now suddenly come into responsible conduct. All these things, all these factors are very holistic. Okay. So the moment you speak about all these things, the first thing that comes to your mind is more than financial assets. And now SEBI's role has become even more strict because BRSR guidelines in 2021 got formalized. And top 1,000 companies, now it is not voluntary anymore.
Okay.
Now you have to make that disclosure.
And disclosure where?
Disclosure to the SEBI.
Okay, disclosure. Not to the shareholders?
The moment you do it to the SEBI, it becomes a public document,
Okay.
just like any financial report.
Okay, got it. So when you say that these top 1,000 companies has to mandatorily disclose to SEBI on their BRSR guidelines, it's very interesting to say actually that all these 1,000 companies are not divided between industries. It is, I'm sure it must be on market capitalization.
Yes, it's based on market capitalization.
So it's quite great initiative that they have not divided between manufacturers or chemical companies or companies who are really polluting the environment, so to say. But it is top 1,000 companies in whichever order they are as per the market capitalization. That's great. So, so these guidelines that BRSR has given, which is now mandatory, what are these guidelines? Because ESG could be subjective. Some companies must be following, some companies are not following. But what are these guidelines that are being given in the BRSR? So what are they? Could you share some light?
Absolutely. So NGBRC is the guiding principle for BRSR.
Okay.
So NGBRC has 9 principles.
Okay.
And what are those 9 principles? 1, company needs to have ethical business conduct. Company needs to sell products that are safe. Companies need to sell services that are safe. Companies need to have more need to have a very diverse mindset. For example, you cannot differentiate between gender or class, caste, creed. Just focus on merits. Things like that. There are 9 principles like that are very broad-lined. BRSR further gives more structure to NGBRC.
Okay.
For example, within BRSR, there are 33 set of questions, and they are not related to law. That's very interesting. That's what I said in the beginning. It's going beyond the law. For example, we always did labor compliances. We always did social impact assessment has been there always. Environmental impact assessment has been there since 2006. But they are statutory compliances. Ministry of Environment and Forest does it anyway. Ministry of Labor does it anyway. But what are you doing extra? For example, are you including LGBTQ community while you're hiring and you're not discriminating based on that? What if there is somebody who comes from a particular sect and has the acumen to perform those activities? There is a woman who can handle machinery better than men, but are you giving her that opportunity? It's having a more broad perspective towards doing things. There are so many companies that are that take part in advocacy and regulatory framework. Are you doing that ethically? Those kind of disclosures.
Okay.
So basically, disclose your intention. It's like that.
Interesting. So these are given in the BRSR?
Yes, BRSR framework, it is there, and so many companies are open for BRSR compliance now.
At this stage today, only top 1,000 companies are required to mandatorily disclose the same.
According to the 2021 notification of SEBI, yes.
But still, why is this word ESG trending among the whole community?
Yes.
I mean, if top 1,000 companies are only doing it, I mean, in India, there are lakhs and lakhs of companies.
Absolutely.
Why is ESG becoming such a hot topic? Every investor is talking about, every startup is talking about, even normal companies are talking about all of this fact that you have to do ESG, you have to be ESG compliant. Is there an impact in their fundraising capabilities or their valuation capabilities? So what is it exactly about?
See, you will be surprised to know, Sanchit, that I have more people coming from startup community, from service sectors, calling me and asking me about, ma'am, would you like to guide us on the ESG reporting, how it's done, what are the frameworks that are relevant for me? And there is absolutely no compulsion for them, but they still want to do it. One reason definitely could be, as you answered your own self, that it helps them raise funds from good investors. You will see that this is the decade in which we have seen most investors making hedge funds and alternative investment funds dedicated to climate change. Okay. That means they're looking for companies that have their life cycle reports in order, that are making products that are adding value, that are eco-friendly. The good claims are there. Investors want to associate with companies like that. Recently only, Boat has backtracked from funding an event of a singer that made certain irregular religious comments. You must have heard about that.
Yeah.
So what is that? It is, now you will say, how is it related to ESG? It is related to reputational risk. And that is what BRSR core is also trying to do. BRSR core is another compliance that will be made mandatory from 2024, max 2025. To again, the listed entities.
Okay.
In order to disclose if there is any claim made against them, if there is any they came under any kind of reputational risk and how they managed it.
Wow.
So these kind of disclosure are also going to come. The point is that the government is actively looking forward to making companies realize that your impact is just not related to finance. And the moment you become a more BRSR open, ESG open company, you will attract more investors, and investors, not just investors who invest in the equities of the company, even a consumer for that matter. We are also investing in a company the moment we are taking any kind of services. So from that, we have to have a very holistic and a broad perspective.
Okay.
And law is not made overnight. It's an evolving process. Societies evolved, mindsets evolve, and that's how laws also evolve. So we are in that process, and very soon we will be having Ministry of Corporate Affairs coming up with making ESG a mandatory compliance for all businesses.
That's really great. So when you say that startups are coming to you, companies are coming to you for ESG advisory on their reporting framework and everything, so you follow the BRSR framework and NGRBC guidelines,
Yes,
and consult them on how they can be more ESG compliant.
yes.
And then these startups and companies, do they have to disclose anywhere, or how do they keep their report?
No, these companies. Okay, so SEBI takes care of the listed companies, and MCA takes care of the non-listed ones. For the non-listed ones, you can have an ESG report and disclose it to MCA on voluntary basis currently. However, it will be made mandatory in the times to come.
Okay.
And it will become a public document.
Okay, got it. And if you are ESG compliant, down the line, investors would be looking at you,
Of course.
in a more better way. Probably you'll be able to raise funds in a better way. You will have a higher valuation.
Higher valuation.
Probably if you're a listed company, you will be your shares will be more liquid in terms of trading.
Totally.
Okay, so that's quite an interesting. So, is there any law provision apart from guidelines and framework for these top 1,000 companies that talks about ESG, or even hints at things that are being done to be ESG compliant?
So as I said, that SEBI keeps on coming up with latest notifications. 2021 is the most effective notification for the listed ones. The Companies Act Section 134, Clause 4, Subclause M, speaks about sustainability reporting for companies, and board needs to be more open towards disclosures with respect to their sustainability activities. We have made CSR more, according to the 2013 Act, CSR is no more a voluntary act anymore.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory now the moment you have profits surpassing 5 crore. And recently, one of the best things that India has done, is that RBI has started taking interest in these kind of activities. It has come up with a sustainability bench that takes care of all kind of funds, foreign direct investments that come in the name of sustainability. That sieves down all the people who are trying to greenwash. That can be a topic for another day. But even RBI has started coming out with notifications with respect to green finance and making India a more investor-friendly market with respect to making companies realize that down the line you will have to become ESG compliant anyway.
Basically looking at more on the qualitative aspects than the quantitative aspects that what has been doing rounds in the past.
Disclose your impact, basically.
Intention.
So as I said in the beginning only, that India has always had this kind of intention to do the right thing all the time. And India has been a pioneer. We've had Supreme Court judgments. We had NGT judgment putting 100 crore penalty on Amazon saying that manage your packaging waste. So what are these kind of guidelines? We have Solid Waste Management Act that forces all the packaging industries to manage their packaging waste, coming and making EPR a mandatory guidelines, whether you're a listed entity or you're a non-listed entity. Just the only thing is that this is getting consolidated in one place, and that is ESG reporting now.
Okay. Interesting. So I think since top 1,000 companies need to mandatorily be ESG compliant and disclose it to SEBI, who do you think in today's time is ESG compliant? I know it could be something for debate here, but I just want to know from the ranking perspective that what are the companies that is well aware in the public or in that fraternity and community that they are considered to be ESG compliant?
Okay. Well, my personal favorite would be, and it is it is open for discussion. I personally like a lot of initiatives and a lot of work done by ITC.
They have to.
Yes. So ITC's framework and its structuring and governance is my personal favorite.
Okay.
I know that they're a tobacco company, but you see, Sanchit, the reason why I like them is that they don't sell tobacco saying that it's a medicine. They're selling it saying it's tobacco. We want to buy it or not buy it. It's our prerogative. It's our choice. They are not greenwashing. They are not misrepresenting. So misrepresentation is one of the things that we need to fear and we need to bypass whenever we are doing any kind of ESG reporting.
Okay.
They have done immense work in terms of CSR also. They have employed villages and trained them for making agarbattis and bought them at very good rates and sold them in the market in B2B and B2C structure. So their entire strategy of working in terms of impact is commendable.
Okay. So now let's say I'm a startup founder or I'm a unlisted company and I wish to be ESG compliant. What are some of the things that you feel that I should be doing in my day-to-day company activities that would make my organization more ESG compliant? Using the framework and guidelines by BRSR.
Okay, so one of the things that we definitely do a run through, because it's very deep, it's very specific. Like plastic company would have different compliances from a consulting company.
Correct.
Because and then we will see scope emissions in plastic companies are measured in scope 1, and for a consulting company it's usually scope 3. So we will be discussing about it. It's about emissions,
Okay.
direct and indirect emissions. We will definitely be checking how per person, per employee emission is there, and how can you offset it if you cannot reduce it at all, by giving you tips in terms of effectively managing your waste, having good partnership models, external partnership models, and installing energy efficiency appliances at your offices, having more, including more trainings in your setup that will give you an idea about your own internal governance structure, and most importantly, making you aware of by understanding what are things material to you, what you think are material to you and are actually material to you.
Okay.
Effective stakeholder management. So there is a roadmap that we prepare for companies, and within few months, and we give them targets. We have them set targets.
It's very interesting to think from this perspective that you use the word stakeholders and not shareholders, which has been really the key. Can you shed some light on that as well? The word stakeholders and shareholders when it comes to the context of ESG?
Okay. So shareholders are people who hold shares in your company. It's a statutory guideline, and we have to take care of them. By under no circumstances do we have to think that, now that I'm becoming an ESG compliant company, I can put my shareholders' rights on hold. That's not true. You don't have that option. Otherwise, You will have NCLT coming after your back. But we are just saying that broaden your perspective.
Okay.
Your stakeholder could be your neighbor. Your stakeholder could be your employee from grade D department. Your stakeholders are your vendors, your logistics partners, your buyers, your sellers. So anybody who comes in contact with you, anybody who's impacted by any remotest thing that you do is a stakeholder. Even your biodiversity is stakeholder.
And all of this comes in the context of ESG.
Yes.
And we have to be socially responsible towards everybody
Yes, and one thing that I'd like to conclude here is that it's not an act of charity. It's just basically letting you know, do the right thing even when no one is watching.
Okay.
It's not charity. And after having a basic streamline of work and everything, ethics in place, it is only going to increase your profitability. And it is not just about, definitely it will attract more funding, but
more valuation.
More valuation. You will be, the more value you add, the more you will gain. I
started seeing that there are a lot of funds that have been coming up, ESG related index funds. And
it's different from CSR.
Probably more ESG compliant company would be getting attracted by more high valuations. So anyway, I think I would like to conclude here. Any giveaway things that you would want to say to our audience or new age entrepreneurs on just small pointers that they can do for their ESG compliance, or could be done so that they can be more ESG compliant?
Do not shy away from taking consultancy. Reach out and learn from the experts who are giving ESG and BRSR consulting. It is not a heavy compliance. It is not something that you have. It's not an expenditure to your company. It's an investment. And don't have this notion that it's an act. Again, it's an act of charity or it's CSR. It's very different from that. It's just cleaning your value chain, and let us help you do that. That would be there. And rest, everybody is aware that we are facing climate catastrophe, and we as young age entrepreneurs and consultants can probably reverse that impact.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sukriti, for coming here, and see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks for having me.
Okay. This concludes our second episode on the sustainability series. We have a lot more in store for you. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned to our space for insights into the corporate world. Like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon. And let us know in the comment section on what you'd want to know more about sustainability and ESG.